Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to give you the UFC, well, not the UFC, my personal UFC 133 predictions. And so I'm going to be giving you my personal opinions, as well as giving you some footage here from UFC 2010 Undisputed. My predictions will just be for the first, well, not the first, the main two fights, which are going to be Rashad versus Ortiz and Belfort versus Yoshihiro Akiyama. So, to start things off, we have Rashad and Ortiz here. And I'm going to get this off my chest before we even start so that you know my opinion is not biased. I can't stand either of these fighters. I find Rashad very cocky. Some might say he has the right to be because he's a beast. And Ortiz, I just don't like. You know, once you start tweeting pics of your dick around, it's you kind of lose popularity in my book. So, start these things off here. Let's start with, both these guys are going to be really hungry. Rashad, he's coming off a few big victories, and Ortiz, he's trying to revive his career. So, I think this is going to be an absolute war. So, to begin with, we'll go over a bit of Rashad Evans here. We haven't seen Rashad fight in over a year. The last we saw him was the 29th of May 2010 versus Rampage. And we all know that Rashad has great wrestling, most notably his takedowns and takedown defense. And just a little note here, he has successfully defended 64% of takedowns against him. He's also got really good striking. We've seen him knock a few people out that way. So Rashad, last time, he had the belt there for a little bit, and then he lost it to Machida. But since then, he is on a 2-win comeback, including, like I said earlier, a big win against Rampage. That was a big win. I personally was pulling for Rampage, but Rashad came out on top in a decision. So, if we look back a little bit, Rashad hasn't lost a fight that's gone the distance. He's won all of them but one, which is a draw, and his only loss was a knockout to Machida for that belt. So, if we look at things, Rashad's looking pretty good. And let's move on to Ortiz. So like I said earlier, I think Ortiz is trying to revive his career. He lost the belt to Chuck Liddell a while ago, and since that fight, after losing that fight, he went 0-3-1. But his last fight, he's coming off a huge submission victory against Ryan Bader. I personally didn't see that. I really like Ryan Bader. I thought he was going to win that fight. So Ortiz has unbelievable conditioning. I may not like the guy, but man, he can fight for a long time, and he can take it. So he's a great wrestler, and his ground and pound is absolutely vicious. So to compare against Rashad here a little bit, Ortiz has defended 58% of his takedowns against him, whereas earlier I said Rashad has defended 64%. So you see a little takedown defense comparison there. Rashad's a bit better. But the only person to ever knock Tito Ortiz out was Chuck Liddell, and that's happened twice. But Liddell has been the only person to ever knock Ortiz out, and that says something about his conditioning right there. He's got great chin, and he can take some punches. So when we compare the two fighters, I'd say if the fight stays standing, we have to give Rashad the advantage. I think he's got a little bit more technical striking. I think he's got better striking when compared to Ortiz, but if it stays standing, I think Rashad will have a hard time knocking Ortiz out just because of his chin. So I think it'll take a lot to knock Ortiz out. If the fight goes to the ground, I think we have to give the advantage to Ortiz. He's got unbelievable ground and pound, and he even has a few submission victories. And I'm not saying Rashad can't submit somebody, but we have pretty big proof that Tito can, and he will. But you never know. Rashad could, surprise and pull out a submission, although I don't see that happening. So who's going to win? In my opinion, like I said, this is just my personal opinion, I'm going to have to say that, although, like I said, I don't like either of these fighters, but I think Rashad's going to come out the victor. He's a real good wrestler. But to stress more so, his takedown defense is huge, and I think that may neutralize Ortiz's ground game. So whatever ground and pound or advantage he has on the ground, I think Rashad might be able to defend against that with his takedowns and his own wrestling ability. So that leaves the fight to be determined toe-to-toe standing, and for which I said earlier, I give Rashad the advantage. And so I think Rashad's going to come out with the win. I don't know if it's going to be a knockout or a decision. Like I said, it's going to take a lot to knock Ortiz out, and if there's ever somebody else to do it other than Liddell, I think Rashad has the potential to do it. He's got real big knockout power, and so I think that's what's going to happen there. And if it goes to submission, we've seen with the results, by stats, just based on statistics, if it goes to if it goes to decision, Rashad has not lost in decision, and so I say Rashad by. Well, he'll have the victory. And if it's anything like UFC 2010 Undisputed says, it'll be a second round knockout.
And with our official decision, here is Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Herb Dean has called a stop to this contest at 4 minutes, 48 seconds of the second round. Declaring the winner by TKO,
Rashad Evans earns the victory.
Okay, folks, next up we have Vitor Belfort versus Yoshihiro Akiyama. And admittedly, these are two fighters who I don't really, who haven't really followed that much. More so Akiyama than Belfort. I've seen Belfort fight a few times. But yeah, I haven't really seen too much of Akiyama. The most I ever watched of him was against Bisping, and he lost that fight. So last time I watched Belfort, well, I watched him lose to Silva as well. But I'm a big Rich Franklin fan, and when he came out and knocked Franklin out, I was pretty impressed with his striking. He's got real heavy hands. So let's start out talking about a little bit by Belfort. He's known for his boxing and his Brazilian jiu-jitsu. As I just said, he's a very, very explosive striker. He knocked out Franklin, and I was real shocked at that. And that just goes to show you how good his striking is. So he had a huge winning streak going, and then got the title shot against Silva for the championship belt, and lost. Silva knocked him out. I think Belfort's going to be real hungry here in this fight to make sure that everybody knows that he's still a top contender, and that he's still, like any fighter really wants that belt, but I think he's still up in the top contenders in middleweight. So Belfort's only been knocked out that I could find by Couture and Silva, and if you ask me, that's not a bad record. If you've only been knocked out by Randy Couture and Anderson Silva, there's not too many people with that. That are in that same caliber. And you gotta remember now, Belfort's fighting in middleweight, whereas Couture, last we saw him, was a heavyweight. So that goes to show you, we know that Belfort can go up to light heavy, I believe, but it goes to show you maybe advantage Couture had there. Another thing with Belfort, he does carry submission victories, and like I said, he has some TKOs. So he's sort of all over the board. He's dangerous whether you're standing or on the ground, and I think. You'll see what I think of Belfort here soon. Now moving on to Akiyama, he's known for his judo, his submissions, and his knockout power. Like I said, I haven't really watched too much of this guy. He beat Belcher a few fights ago, and Belcher got to go on for a title shot shortly thereafter. Whereas Akiyama lost two straight fights versus Lieben and Bisping. And according to UFC.com, though, he's only been knocked out once. That's all I could find. And I could be underestimating Akiyama here. Some of you might say I am. But in comparison to what I've seen, in my opinion, I like Belfort better. I think he's a better fighter. So when we look at the two fighters versus each other, if it's standing, obviously you got to give it to Belfort. Although Akiyama has knockout power, Belfort's so explosive, and I think if it stands, we'll see a knockout for sure. On the ground, it's they both have submissions. I'm gonna give the advantage to Belfort. Could be biased. I like him better. Who knows? So if it stands, I'm gonna give it to Belfort. If it goes to the ground, I'm gonna give it to Belfort. Thus, the victory, I'm gonna say it has to go to Vitor Belfort. And if it's anything like the footage here, you'll see it's a second round knockout. Spoiler alert. Sorry, but yeah, I think that's who's gonna come out. So those are my two predictions there for the two main events of this fight. I'm gonna say Rashad. I think he's gonna win, but whether it's decision or a knockout, it's hard to say because of Ortiz's chin and his conditioning. And then in our second fight, Belfort versus Akiyama, I'm gonna say Belfort. I'm gonna say a knockout too, and if I'll go along with this footage and I'll say second round as well. So we'll see what happens there. You guys can feel free to post your own predictions down below. If you disagree with me, by all means, tell me down below. I'm open. I'm pretty new to MMA. I've only been following it for maybe 5 years now, and so I try to do my reading and stuff like that, and read up on the fighters and get to know them a little bit better. But any extra information is welcome, and like I said, let me know what you guys think of this upcoming fight. I'm open to any opinions. Leave some comments below. If you want some more, maybe I'll put up a prediction of UFC 134 when that time comes, and maybe I'll do a little bit of a recap to see how my 2 predictions went for this fight. I would love to do more predictions for this fight. However, I like to show the fight in the background from 2010 Undisputed, and I don't have all the fighters. They're just not in the game. So maybe when they make a 2011, I'll be able to do more. But either way, those are my predictions for UFC 133. I'm going to say, recap again for the 3rd or 4th time. Rashad and Belfort coming on top. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and enjoy the rest of the video. Peace.
Has the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Dan Mergliata has called a stop to this contest at 3 minutes, 50 seconds of the second round, declaring the winner by knockout, Vitor the Phenom Belfort!
Vitor Belfort wins the fight tonight.